Stuart, could you speak a little bit about patience within one's process?
Well, without patience, it doesn't work. I mean, I always mention that the person we're up against in order to have a spiritual life is really not anyone in the objective world. It's really ourselves. And in order to overcome the obstacles, the tension, the blocks, the stuff that's inside a human being, I mean, it takes time. And I always say, in order to do this, you need something that almost sounds contradictory. You need patient impatience. You need to want to really work on yourself. You want to go deep inside, and then you have to have the patience to recognize the amount of time it takes to get free of these things inside oneself that keep one from having, forget a spiritual life, just keep one from really being a happy person. So patience is really one of the most important elements. And I mean, frankly, if you want a spiritual life and you're truly set on doing inner work, then you're going to have patience. You have no choice in the matter. I mean, look, I used to kid around. It takes us, how many years to get into the condition we're in? It's not going to go away in a week and a half. So it takes time, and it takes a slow maturation process inside a human being that gets them to a place where they truly can master the chaos inside. So patience, I mean, look, I've mentioned this a lot too, but Rudy said it a million times, or I've said it a million times, and maybe Rudy said it once. It takes 9 months to have a baby. It takes 1 second to die. And that little aphorism is so profound because it really teaches us how life matures, how everything matures. Everything has to evolve and grow and come into fruition. And in order for us to evolve and grow and come into fruition, we have to have patience. I mean, impatience is just a sign of immaturity. Well, I want it next week. I want it in a half hour. I want it now. And it's also a sign that we're incapable of accepting ourselves as we are living in this moment. So it's really patient impatience. You want to grow, but then it takes time. And a combination of those two things really takes one very far inside themselves.
Thank you. Thanks.
Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart, can you talk about vibrancy?
About who?
Vibrancy.
Wow, feel the energy here, it's very vibrant, I mean, look, there are many different levels of vibrancy, there's from where, stuff is stagnant and dead and it has no vibrancy to energy that is highly vibrant. And there are people that live with really strong egos and a lot of charisma that are very vibrant, but that doesn't mean that they're having a spiritual life, because generally all of that energy is being, tossed out onto the world. And it keeps them, they're draining themselves of the energy in order to, through charisma, through ego, to have some kind of place in the world. I mean, the kind of vibrancy that I think is essential for a spiritual life is an internal vibrancy. the heart's open, you're centered, there's balance inside. And the aura around a human being changes from some dark gray, shady type of to light, white and yellow and orange and, energies that are very vibrant and very nurturing in their vibrancy. So, it just depends upon, honestly, how deeply people can work on this. I mean, there are people with huge egos and great charisma that do a lot of evil in the world. And people are attracted to that vibrancy of energy because that is truly what exists inside them. And if you want to be attracted to, a higher level of vibrancy, then one has to have a need to reach that higher level of vibrancy. And, on the earth, the highest level is probably Shakti that flows, that nurtures us deep in ourselves when we have learned to open inside to allow it to do it. And then our energy becomes more vibrant. I mean, you can do in 1 minute what used to take, what would, could take years for somebody else to do. I mean, vibrancy has little or nothing to do with how busy we are. It has to do with how conscious we are. In many cases, how simple we are inside, so we can really see the world and not allow things to interfere with the way we must act every day. I mean, I have a really fun place in my heart for Zen painting, because, a great work of art by a Zen artist, master, is probably a manifestation of 20 years of deep inner work. And then they can just draw one line and it's a masterpiece. Well, how do they do that? How do they attain that level of vibrancy? Years of working inside themselves, growing, maturing, becoming masters of what they do. And it goes back to patience, if you have no patience, it's just a sign of immaturity. And once you start maturing inside, then you have patience. A redwood tree doesn't become a redwood tree when you put a seed in the ground. It takes 100 years for it to grow and become this drop dead, gorgeous, powerful tree, that lives. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Hey, Stuart. Thank you so much. The meditation was incredible tonight, as always, but there was an extra level, and I felt the energy before we even started, and I wondered if it was a special occasion or something.
It's Monday.
Very special. And thank you for the So Hum suggestion.
Well, every day is special.
Yes, indeed.
Every day is special. I don't need special occasions to sit down and tap that kind of energy. I always tell, when I send out birthday cards to people or messages, I always tell you know, may this day and every day of your life be filled with joy and happiness. You know, every day is a birthday. Every day is special.
Right. Agreed.
Don't need, you know, I don't need to win the lotto in order to sit and do your God's work here, you know, to be grateful in my heart. You know?
And I wanted to thank you for suggesting the so hum, because as soon as I started saying it, it took over, and it was being said through me. And then just this fullness of well-being. And can you talk about that? Like when spirit breathes us, when spirits, and then I just felt like I was just, spirit was doing everything.
Well, you know, so hum is very simple. It's 2 syllables. I suspect it's Sanskrit. It's 2 syllables. And the meaning is very clear. When you inhale, I am, hum, and you exhale, that. And what it really is teaching is that every breath we take is a prayer. And that the breath we take sustains the world. It is life. So when we inhale, we take in life. I am. When we exhale, that I am one with everything. It has to create an amazing vibration inside of a human being, you know? Because one is really surrendering to life, to the very breath I mean, it's extraordinary how simple this is and how profound. I
Absolutely.
mean, try not to breathe for about 5 minutes and see what happens. And almost nobody in the world is conscious of the power of breath. Most people breathe directly into their forehead. They activate the thinking process in the mind. They drive themselves crazy. Very few people breathe into the hara. So, you know, doing so hum before the meditation is a really good idea.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome, Paula. Does anyone else have a question?
Stuart, I have a question. How do you stop an aggressive person from abusing you?
You know, look, I once had a friend who was a really great martial arts teacher, really great one. He used to do all these matches, all, you know, black belts, you know, 20 black belts. And I'm walking on the street with him, and I said to him, you know, the greatest martial artists, the greatest of them, will never get into a fight. Their chi is so strong. The balance, the harmony of them is so strong that by the time somebody is the anger in another human being will just vanish. That's how you do it. You get to a place where you're in such a deep state of surrender inside that people have to approach you differently. And nobody's perfect. Everybody has something wrong. So there's always going to be some. I've learned the best way to deal with people's, you know, hostility is don't feed it. Don't feed it. Just stay aware, be centered, be balanced, but don't feed them. If you don't feed them, it usually burns itself out before it can do any damage to anybody. Now, this takes a big person. You have to really be highly developed inside, which is what we're trying to do here, to get that kind of development. And meanwhile, you know, there's meanwhile. You know, just, I mean, look, I've told this story a million times. I'll tell it once more, okay? Because it's really right to the point. I mean, years ago when Rudy bought Big Indian and wanted to build an ashram up there, you know, I remember that winter, I was going to school, I was running a business, I was, you know, teaching his meditation, you know, you know, and every time he was gone, I was teaching. And even when he was there was one night a week I was teaching. I mean, I was teaching hatha yoga to people. I mean, it was just nonstop, 18 hours a day, you know? And I went up to him, I said, Rudy, you think I can go up to Big Indian and maybe chill out for 2 or 3 days? And he said, Stuart, that's what it's for. Just go up there, you know? So I went up to Big Indian and I took a bus, stopped in the town. The town was like one store. Stopped and then I walked up this road to the ashram. I got to the ashram, I found a room, it's like an old hotel, and I found a room in the ashram and I unpacked my stuff and I looked out the window and there was the yard that was about, I don't know, maybe an acre, where the grass was taller than me. And I said, well, and there was a tractor sitting there with a thing on it to cut the grass. So I said, Stuart, there's something you can do. Instead of sitting around here and mulling in how tired you are, you can go contribute something to go cut the grass. So I went down, I got on this tractor, I started driving the tractor and I'm cutting the grass and I'm having a jolly good time doing it. You know, my tension is coming out of me. And suddenly from the other side of the ashram, the guy who was the manager of the place, and he was also a friend of mine, comes running across the ashram, screaming at me. And I had done 50 things wrong and I was only there 20 minutes. And he's just really hostile, nose to nose practically. And I'll tell you, you know, my usual response to that kind of thing used to be, I would get into a fist fight with the screaming match, you know? And I just said to Stuart, just listen to him. Stay centered, just listen, he's tense. And I just spent 10 minutes listening to him until he got quieter and quieter. And then tears came into his eyes. And he gave me a big hug. And he said, thank you. Now, if that wasn't a lesson in how to deal with hostility, you know, I'll never forget that. It was such a deeply moving and educational experience for me. I didn't have to be better than him. I didn't have to be right. I just had to listen, keep my mouth shut, let him burn up his tension. And I had the same thing with a superintendent of my building who I'm walking in the building where I was living and he comes out of his apartment screaming at me about 12 things I did wrong. And I just listened to him. And finally, I thought the whole guy's energy was going to fall down in front of me, you know? And finally, he just finished and he looked at me and he said, never mind. And he walked back into his apartment. Never forget that. I mean, it was a great exercise and I learned something from dealing with tension that way in other people. I learned that I didn't have to be intimidated by somebody else's craziness. Yeah, if somebody's coming at me with a knife, then it's another story, you know? But like the Buddha said, you know, I mean, this is a great thing, you know? One of his disciples got bit by a snake and Buddha, what did he do to the snake? But the snake bit him. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Thank
So
you,
if you
Stuart.
plan on coming to me and screaming at me, you're not going to get much of an answer. You know, I'm not going to be there fighting with you. I promise.
What if let's say your brother is abusing your parents? And
If your brother is abusing your parent,
I'm just talking, I'm just generalizing. I mean, my brother is sometimes abusive towards my father and my mother, and they love him unconditionally. So they have to just to take it in and just be quiet. But it's just make my brothers and me uneasy.
yeah, I mean, look, the person to have compassion for is your brother. You know, maybe take him out for dinner. Sit down, open to him in a way that you haven't before. I mean, people strike out that way because they need love. You know, there's a great book by Dostoevsky called Crime and Punishment. I'm sure many of you have read it, you know. And there's a character in there called Raskolnikov. And he winds up killing this old kind of woman who lives in an attic in some building. And Raskolnikov himself lived like a recluse, you know, like a hermit. And he was a brilliant student with a great mind who had no capacity to connect with the world. And when he went and killed this, it was the only way he could connect with the world. It was horrible. But it was his way of connecting. That act of violence was his way. And it completely transformed him as the rest of the book went on. He became a whole totally different person when the book was over. Usually when people do these kind of things, I mean, they're just starving to death inside. They need love. They need, you know, and it's not that we're capable of giving them that kind of love. You know, I mean, you know, like these kids go and shoot people in these schools. It's horrible. But I can't imagine the terror, the anger, the unhappiness inside these people. They're just reaching for attention, for love, for somebody to recognize them, you know? And I'm sure your brother is in the same condition. Well, why would he abuse his parents, you know? So maybe you find a way to love him unconditionally. You know, do something that touches him, you know? Makes him feel like he's a human being. Don't lecture him. That's the last thing to do because it doesn't work. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome.
Stuart, do you believe in mental illness?
Yes. 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 Just turn the television set on and you will be confronted instantly with mental illness. Yes, a serious problem, but it can be cured, for God's sake, if people would learn how to work on themselves. I mean, when I was a kid, I was so neurotic. I was so insecure. I was so mentally unstable. You know, when I was in my early 20s, a teen, I mean, I wasn't psychotic, but I had a lot of problems. Years of doing inner work, you know, they vanished. And a lot of times people hide behind their neurosis because it keeps them from, you know, hiding behind your neurosis. You don't have to do anything. I'm crazy. I'm neurotic. I'm this, I'm that. You know, so it means you don't have to really function. Yes, I believe in, I don't know, it's not a religion. I absolutely recognize that we live in a crazy world. But the reason it's really crazy is that almost nobody works on themselves in any kind of depth. So mostly we have to accept this. This is what the world is. It's like the title of that book, A Madness Falling from the Sky. The whole world is just raining madness, you know? And mostly because people don't work on themselves. They don't go deep enough inside to transform the neurosis, the anxiety, the unhappiness into love, into balance, harmony, and it's all possible. But, you know, tell people about it. They think you're crazy, you know, if you tell them you can do this. I mean, I got to meditate. Well, you know what you got, you know, maybe something can help you.
Stuart, would
Yeah.
you call what you were just describing someone who's neurotic or does bad things, someone who is having a Black experience, that's not the word I want. Darn it.
Claudia, what's the question?
I'm trying to express.
Well, Claudia, I'll tell you what, think about it overnight and ask me on Wednesday, okay? When you have the question
I
clear.
forgot the word. I'm sorry. I'm
Uh-huh.
sorry.
Don't want to cut you off, but think about it. Don't think about it. Find it in yourself what the real question is, and then ask me, and I'll be happy to answer it.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
I remembered the shadow aspect of the self.
Well, so what about it? It's there. Everybody has it.
So one can work with that because, right? One can work with it because that way.
Claudia, what is the question?
I wanted to know if you, all right, I give up. I'm trying to understand something and I'm getting.
All right, stop thinking about it, and I promise you'll begin to understand it.
Okay. Thank you. Oh,
Does anyone else have a question that was like that? Okay. So I just have, before we end tonight, I have just two and I'm trying to put together a retreat. I have 16 people that have tentatively signed up, and if you're interested in going and attending, it's going to be, I think the 18th, 19th of February, whatever that Saturday and Sunday are. I don't know. It's anyway, there's Rudy Samadhi, the 21st, and it's the 2 days afterward. The retreat it'll be a Saturday and a Sunday. If you're interested in attending, please let me know. And there are complications, and mostly I have to monitor this COVID thing. It seems like it's getting worse and worse in this country now. And I don't want to expose people to catching that disease, or spreading that disease. If you've got vaccinated, you can still spread the disease. So that's also a situation, but I still want to know how many people want to attend, and then I can make a decision of whether or not we'll do this. So if you're interested in attending, please let me know. You can email me, text me, however you want. And the second thing is I'm doing just about every day in-person classes. And people have been coming here from the West Coast, from Florida, and if you want to come, very welcome. Because, these are every class is hands-on healing work and, doing meditation. And it's really quite deep and quite wonderful. And people are invited. Again, I ask people to please get vaccinated. And if you have a problem with that, then I just don't want to even, I can't help you. If you have a problem with that, it's just something you have to work out in your own life. So those two things I wanted to bring up. And I also want to bring up, God bless you all and thank you. And in all sincerity, I think this is an amazing way to spend an hour and a half, for me, it's 7 days a week, 7 times a week. And I'm just very grateful to everybody that attends these classes and makes the kind of effort you make, asks the kind of questions you ask. And I hope you all are benefiting, because I know I certainly am. And I couldn't have more gratitude for, being here and being with all of you and doing this. So bless you all. And there'll be a class on Wednesday, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone. Thank you.
All right, Stuart, thank you.
Stuart.
All right.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Night.
Thank you, Stuart.
Good night.